Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to start by asking you to maybe elaborate on something you said in the introduction about, Venice and this film being the sort of counter image of what we typically see and know of Venice. This is your home region, is it? The Veneto?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you can talk a little bit. Was that like the main impulse to make a film set in this place?
Yeah, it was because, as you know, Venice is a city with 40,000 people, but that has 27 million tourists a year, and also the Dolomites, and then there is this UNESCO World Heritage that year after year put a lens on some place in my region, like the Prosecco Hills or Padova as the city of Giotto and so on. And every time this happens, a flood of tourists come. And every time they come, I look at the billboards. Every time I'm so impressed because I look at this billboard and say, I don't live there. It's not where I live. It's not the image of where I live. And so I was so angry and so frustrated that I said, okay, let me make a film that is the most faithful portrait of this place and of this landscape, actually. And so I set out to make a landscape film. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's a genre, but it's a landscape film. And what for me was important was to learn not to judge what I was shooting, but not to make beautiful, not to say, this is beautiful, this is ugly, but try to find a way just to show it. So that was the main thing I had to learn while doing this film. Yeah.
I mean, a landscape film is also kind of like a road movie.
Yes.
Right. So can you talk about like just planning the journey, the itinerary of like how you wanted to take your characters through this region?
Yeah. So for me, there was just one thing that was fixed, and it was the Brion monument,
the tomb. Yeah.
And I knew that somehow the journey would go there at some point, but I didn't know what point. And then what's interesting about road movie is that more than a script, you have a map. Like before having a script, you have a map. So you define a map, you define like a journey, and like you literally, I mean, we literally draw like a line on the roads we wanted to take. And then for years and years, I went around my home region, basically not going out. Like I didn't travel to other places, I didn't visit other places, but for 6 years I was just in this landscape. And I would hear a lot of things in bars or in trains, and I would write them down. And so at some point, me and my co-writer, Adriano Candiago, we put all on a table, and we had like a map and a lot of scenes, and so we started to compose it, basically.
Can you talk about just conceptualizing it around these characters, the duo who then becomes a trio, and the idea of the last drink that is never really a last drink?
So I came to hate plots in a way. I don't know, I think we live in an age where fiction is like there is a strange relationship between audience and fiction. And so I asked myself, so when this relationship is broken somehow, what's left? And for me, it was something so simple, like a mechanism of, okay, we go out to drink. Like we all know that you go out one night and you say, let me drink just one, and then I go home. And then suddenly it's the next day. And you drank like 10 drinks. And I thought, this is such a cool mechanism that you think it's the last one, but it's never the last one. And you go on and go on and go on. And so I thought, okay, I don't have a plot, but I have narrative mechanism that I can use, which is this one, going for the last one, but it's never the last one, and you go on. And that's how we came out, and the characters are like, in a way, they're stereotypes of my region, like people who lost their job after the Great Crisis.
Industrial jobs and
Yeah. So they lost it and they ended up in bars, basically. And they went into this, we call it, I don't know in English, but we call it deregulation of work. And so I observed them for a long time, and I thought they were like unsung heroes of Italy. And I never saw them in cinema, portrayed in cinema. But they're very interesting because they lost in a way, but at the same time they look like heroes to me in a way. They look like people who are so out of the system now that they came out with their own philosophy and their own way of looking at the world. And the architecture student is a bit of a synthesis of a lot of people that I know that have more humanistic and more contemporary, yet at the same time old-fashioned taste for, in this case, Carlo Scarpa, so like a very important architect of Italy. And so I like the idea because I think for me what's very frustrating is that I feel I live in an age where there is a lot of generational clash, especially in Italy. There is a lot of generational clash, and I wanted to activate the communication because I don't understand why we don't communicate. Because when I don't communicate, I end up being just in my own bubble, and I just see always the same places, always the same type of apartments, always people like me. And I don't like this. So I wanted to activate a form of strange communication between two generations that in Italy really don't know each other. They're like completely estranged. So that's what was behind this idea. Yeah.
To come back to this narrative idea of like the drink, the last drink, yeah, I was wondering if you're thinking about other filmmakers who use alcohol as a, not like depicting alcoholics or alcoholism, but like, I think alcohol changes the mood of things. I think, you think of Bellatar or Hong Sang-soo or John Cassavetes, and these films, there are always these kind of, I mean, there's a quote, I think, by Bachelard where he says, alcohol is a creator of language, and I wonder if you thought of that as how it creates film language, too, like.
Yeah, totally. I'm a huge fan of Bellatar. Like, I'm completely mad about all these films, and also I like Kaurismäki, of course.
Yeah, another one.
As you can tell.
Yes.
And what I like about them is that there is no judgment in this alcohol.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of films about alcoholism where I feel that the characters have to redeem themselves from alcohol, but I don't like it because coming from this very alcohol-fueled region, I never see redemption from that. It's like, no, but it's true. It's like you end in the bar and then it's like this. You go on. And I thought it was more faithful. And I really like these filmmakers you mentioned, like especially Bellatar, for most of all. And I like how in Bellatar you feel like when you watch Satan Tango, after a while you feel drunk, actually, in a way. Like you're mesmerized by time and what's happening. And so yes, I thought about them a lot, but most of all, I thought about them a lot.
You mentioned the Brion tomb and that being sort of the destination where the film was headed, and of course the character of the architecture student. I'm wondering if you can say a bit more about your interest in architecture, also whether you think this relationship between architecture and cinema.
I mean, for me, architecture is part of my life because my father and my sister and basically all of my friends are architects, and I used to live with a lot of architects, and so per osmosis, I got a lot of architectural concept in my life. At the same time, it's very difficult, I think. So when I rewatched a lot of Italian commedia all'italiana, so like Italian comedy by Dino Risi or Mario Monicelli.
60s, 70s.
60s, mainly 60s and 70s also. And what I noticed is that the main focus is always architecture and landscape, like the changing landscape of Italy during the economic growth and boom. And so I thought, okay, let me do a film about the economic crisis, and let me put again the landscape at the center of the image. So let me explore it. And Carlo Scarpa is a very interesting Italian architect of the 20th century. And what he did with the Brion tomb is something very interesting, because he tries to find analogies between Venetian architecture and Japanese architecture. It was actually inspired by this golden pavilion in Kyoto, where Matsuo Basho used to write his haikus. And so he tried to recreate that idea of space of the Japanese architecture, but at the same time combining it with details coming from Venetian and Palladian and architecture. And what for me it's interesting is that it's a sort of map of a lost future, that tomb, because inside the tomb there is a way of trying to find synthesis between differences and not trying to homologate stuff. And so it's very political again, because we ended up living in a world plagued by globalization, where you don't feel the difference anymore. Also when you travel, everything looks the same, it has the same taste. And that idea was incredible. Like, how can I find a way to put together differences, not eliminating them, but making them harmonical in a way. So that's
Harmonious,
that's harmonious. That's why I like that a lot. Yeah.
This was also a set for Dune, yes?
Yeah.
Did you shoot before or after that?
After, unfortunately, yeah. It costs more than I'm joking. No, I shot after. Yeah, but in Dune is not the Brion tomb, is the garden of the palace of the emperor.
Right. I'm just going to ask one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. Yeah, if you could say, this is our first encounter with you. I was when you mentioned the Italian comedies of the 60s and 70s. I'm just curious about your other sort of formative influences as a filmmaker. I was looking at your biography. It's interesting to me that you studied at the film school in Berlin at the DFFB, which is not common for. You have a pretty good film school in Rome too.
Yeah,
but I'm just wondering if that's that because your films seem different to me than like a lot of other young Italian filmmakers I've been seeing. So I wonder if that has something to do with it.
Thank you. I went to study in Berlin because I saw a lot of my friends studying in Italy, and they were a bit frustrated by it, and so I thought I should look for another place to have other influences, and actually went to Berlin to study with Bellatar. So that's why I went to Berlin. So because I watched Satan Tango on New Year's Eve. Yeah. Do it. It's a good experiment to watch it on New Year's Eve when everyone is celebrating and you're watching Satan Tango. And so I went there for him. At the same time, I love American cinema a lot. Like I love Howard Hawks a lot. I like the fact that Howard Hawks could combine different genres and visit different genres and be so free. And there is this incredible mise-en-scène ability that he has in every film, and is constantly changing. And another one I really love is John Carpenter. It's my favorite. And So I have a lot of influence from American cinema. At the same time, I have a lot of influence from Japanese cinema. That I love Ozu and Masaki Kobayashi, among all. And then another one that I love is Bresson. So I really like, especially L'Argent. And in some scene here, maybe you can see there is some focus on hands exchanging money.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I like a lot of different stuff. So I don't. I was very curious as a young man to explore different kind of cinemas, and I still am. So yeah. And the Commedia all'Italiana for me is the most interesting part of Italian cinema, because it's a very powerful instrument to portray the exact time you want to tell. So if you watch like the Il Sorpasso by Dino Risi, was a big influence here. Like, it's exactly Italy in 1962. And then what I wanted to do is to make a film that in 20 years you can look and say, okay, that was Italy in 2025. Yeah. That's how it looked like. So yeah, I like this stuff.
Okay, we'll take a couple of audience questions. Yeah, we have a microphone coming to you.
Thank you for being here. I love this film a lot. I have a question about the theme of like time and change in the contemporary Italian like art house movies. Because like on Thursday I'm gonna watch Sorrentino's film as well, and I feel like his film like is also a lot about like youth and change and time. And like in this film, you talk about like for people living in Veneto, in Venice, like all these changes are kind of like sad and kind of traumatic. But for tourists like myself, like we always gaze Italy as a kind of like eternity. Like the beauty comes from the staticness and the landscape that's like supposed to be like the same for the past like 1,000 years. I don't know, like how do you like what's your thought on that kind of tension between the changing city life to people and that kind of eternal beauty of the buildings and architects in Italy? That kind of tension between the staticness and changing stuff. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I don't know if I have a thought. I have a feeling about it, and it's a very complex feeling that involves nostalgia, melancholia, for a past that it's always present. Sometimes I feel that living in Italy is impossible to think about the future, because there is so much past. I mean, I live in Venice, so you can imagine, like, I'm exposed to the past every day, so it's difficult to think about the future. At the same time, if I see, for instance, Carlo Scarpa, there were ideas of future at some point, and this future was always looking at the past, find something there, and try to build from there. And there is this. I mean, there was a Pasolini idea, no, about the scandalous force of the past. So the revolutionary force of the past. And I think it's impossible to be an Italian, and to be like Italian filmmaker without living this strange dichotomy. You want to do something new and something looking at the future, but at the same time, the only way you have to reach that is to go through the past. And living in Italy is a bit like this. Like, you're constantly watching another age, another time when you look out the window. So it must do something with your brain at some point, I suppose. Yeah. I feel very different. For instance, when I'm here, I feel completely different. Like, since last night, I have a new energy. And I told my girlfriend, wow, let's move here, because here I feel something new and not like this crazy melancholy for a past that doesn't exist anymore. So, yeah, so it's very complex feeling that arise, yeah.
We have other problems besides.
Okay. Yeah, but you know.
We'll go to the very back, please.
We also have other problems, by the way.
We have
yeah,
some
so-
shared. We actually have some shared problems.
Okay, hi. Love the movie.
Thank you.
You went to Berlin Film School, and this movie's like a road movie. Was Wim Wenders an influence at all? And also, you thought, oh, I should move to New York or to America. Would you ever do a movie set in America?
No. No, but just because it's so, I think I have a huge respect of American film tradition, and I feel I cannot add anything to that. I mean, how can I do a film in the US if John Ford made films here? I mean, I don't feel I have anything to add to that. At the same time, yeah, I love Wenders' idea of portraying how things. You know, he has a way of shooting landscape and buildings that it looks like they want to show themselves in this way. And I tried to study that. For instance, I love The American Friend by Wim Wenders, which is a good example of what you were saying. So he brought like an American actor then to Germany to make his own American film in a way, but it's a German film.
Yeah.
So I like that idea. And also I like this film he made called Kings of the Road. I think it's the American title. It was also like a film coming from a map. And I mean, it's impossible to make a road movie without watching Wenders' film. So he really made them what they are now, I think. So yeah, I love him. Yeah.
You would. I mean, you say you wouldn't make a film in America, but you would make a film outside your region, outside the Veneto.
I don't know. My problem is that I don't have any kind of imagination.
Ah.
So when I dream about that places, and most terrifying when I read a book, like for instance, I read a Stephen King novel. In my head is a set in my hometown, and so at some point I said, okay, look, maybe you should do films like this, like about this lack of landscape imagination that you have, and so I think I'm gonna stay there for a while. I dream about going away, but then I said, why? Yeah.
That sounds good to us. We're out of time, but I want to thank you so much for this film and for being here with us.
And thank you for this Q&A.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching.